What's up, everyone? Welcome to SheaRants. Today I'm talking about the Nightmare on Elm Street remake because it is officially 40 years since the original movie has come out, and I'm not doing this alone. I'm joined by my buddy Davey Deathray, so welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much, Shay. Really appreciate you, man. Yeah, this one is a tough remake to get through, so I'm looking forward to giving this movie some shit, all in good fun. So hopefully, if there are any folks out there hanging out in the chat that enjoy the movie, I am curious to know why and what works for you and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to be having a little fun ripping on this one for sure. How you doing, Shay? Thanks so much for having me, man.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. As I said, thanks for coming on. I definitely agree. It's going to be a lot of fun just completely making fun of this movie for like a good hour or so, just because it had some potential, but then it just takes so many iconic bits of the original and just rehashes them with terrible CGI, and it's just terrible.
It is, yeah, I guess like my overall thoughts, that way we can sort of structure things a little bit. Like my overall thoughts are, yeah, this movie sort of has an identity crisis. Does it want to be a remake of the original film, or does it want to tell its own story? Because it like weaves in and out of those two realities. And I think that that's like maybe the biggest detriment when I'm watching this movie as a fan of the original is I'm just sort of like, pick a lane. Like, I don't even know what the heck you want to do. And it made me think like any chances you take when you emulate those moments from the original, like you had said, it's like any other chances that you take that go outside of that box, they don't seem that daring because you're still anchored by, straight up reenacting scenes from the original movie.
Yeah. I agree, but I'm just gonna quickly say hi to some people in the chat.
Yeah.
What's up, Paula? Welcome to the stream. How's it going? How's it going, Tyrese? Welcome. I didn't know that there was a Halloween Horror Nights maze for this movie. I don't think I was. What? Oh yeah, I was 2 years old when that happened, so I don't think I would have remembered that. Sadly.
I bet the maze is scarier than the movie. That's for sure.
Yeah, probably. What's up, Chris? Welcome. I just watched the original Nightmare. Such a better movie.
Oh my gosh!
That's actually great to watch today, especially with it being now 40 years old. Welcome, Gene. Welcome to the stream. How's it going?
What's happening, Gene?
And yeah, well, I mean, as we said, this movie definitely has an identity crisis. Like,
yeah,
especially with like the opening. The opening is unique. Like, it's different from the original, and I actually like the opening of this movie. I was like, wait, did I completely forget about this? Because this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then it just swaps from being like cool to just failing miserably.
Yeah, and I do think hey, what's happening, Gina? She's over in your neck of the woods, I think, Shay. Across the pond, as we say. Yeah, the opening scene, I will say this. I do think that there's like this movie suffers from that odd like pretty people acting, like airbrushed looking people acting, like maybe models that are getting some of their first jobs. Because I do like the conceit in the opening scene. I think it's a really cool opening. But I can't remember the character's name, like the main guy in the beginning.
Yeah.
But the whole time I'm like, this dude can hardly act. I know that they picked him for this role because he's easy on the eyes for the teeny boppers that they want to get in the theater, and I totally get that. But yeah, I do think that that's a great example of them starting things off like in their own way, and then they kind of just get right back into remake territory there. Yeah, but I think that you have to have that scene, right? You open up any kind of horror movie, we want to see some sort of kill at the beginning. And yeah, they do a good job of working with the shadows, playing with the light and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I do think that that's effective. It sort of sets the tone a little bit, but then they play with the tone so damn much from there.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of issues with this movie, but we'll talk more about the main issue, which is with Freddy later.
Yeah,
Get into
yeah,
that,
yeah.
What's up, Jamie? Welcome to the stream. How's it going?
Hey, Jamie.
Did you hear that Laurie Strode might return for a new Halloween
Mm,
movie? Yeah, I heard Jamie Lee Curtis saying like never say never. I don't know how to feel about that. Like I don't
yeah.
really want it anymore.
I'll say never. I'm fine. Like, if they bring Laurie back in some capacity, I'm okay with that. I don't need to see Jamie Lee Curtis in another Halloween movie. If she wants to
Yeah,
come back and be an executive producer and throw down a bunch of money to make sure that, the movies have awesome budgets and all that kind of fun stuff, then I'm cool with her being like a part of the team. But that's what that man, I wish that Laurie got killed at the end of Halloween Ends, and then we just like really would
yeah,
have been with her. But yeah.
yeah. I mean, like
You say she was leaving
it could have been.
forever? Like it hasn't even been 2 years.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
come on.
for some reason I can't remember, but like I saw online like when Halloween Ends came out, that like everyone was saying, oh, yeah, she signed something saying that she's not going to make any more Halloween movies.
Yeah.
What happened to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. And maybe she is teasing us, Jamie. Maybe she is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I guess never say never because it doesn't get you any trouble if it happens or if it doesn't happen. I guess it's the safe answer. It's the politically correct, easy thing to say, I guess, is like,
yeah. I mean, I'd maybe like to see her maybe if like she's different in a way, maybe not just
uh-huh.
have her be crazy old grandma like in the last trilogy, and then
Yeah.
like in the previous movie she was like overbearing mother, which she is in this
Hmm.
new trilogy as well, and then also like afraid
Yeah.
babysitter. Maybe do something new. Maybe have her be new Dr. Loomis. That could work, maybe.
Sure. Yeah. I thought that that's what she was kind of going to turn into in Ends, but they
Yeah,
didn't really go the full route with it. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. You know, it's tough to say whether or not she'll ever come back to Halloween, but I think it's pretty easy to say that everyone involved with this A Nightmare on Elm Street movie is probably never going to come back to the franchise. Hopefully not anyway.
Oh yeah,
What's up, Kyle
probably
Curtis?
never come back. I mean, I'd like to see Carl Gallner maybe because he's actually a pretty good actor now.
He's
What's up,
great.
Kyle? How's it going? Yeah.
Yeah, Kyle Gallner's awesome.
What's up,
It's too
Chris?
bad that they sort of, they just. I would say that he's my favorite part. I actually think that, for all the talk
Yeah.
that I've heard people say that like they're like, oh, Rooney Mara just like doesn't care in this movie. You can tell that she's phoning it in. I actually think that like I liked her performance. I thought her and Kyle Gallner were like
Yeah.
the two things about the movie that worked for me. Like almost everything else
Yeah.
did not work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris, I agree. Such a good
Mm-hmm.
actor, such an iconic actor. Um,
Yeah.
really sad they passed away, especially so young. He was only 69.
Yeah, that's man, it's like these days that is you feel like it's too young to die. Yeah, especially for somebody who, looked like he kept in such great shape. So,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of memories, a lot of great memories watching not only watching him but also just his voice.
Yeah.
Being used as a voice actor and just that. I mean, he's so iconic on both of those levels for sure. And one of the we did our or I had done a ranking. I think it was on Kyle Curtis's channel doing Evil Dead and Living Dead films, and we were talking about the Night of the Living Dead remake, and I think he's like the anchor of that movie. Like that movie to
Yeah.
me is just kind of okay, but Tony Todd, raises it up a notch for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. Um, if she comes back, and what your thoughts? Do you think she will die or live, or if she will be involved? I kind of agree with Davey here. I'd say maybe executive producer at best. I don't really want her to come back anymore.
Yeah, I mean, if they
Unless she
bring
has
the
a time.
character, if they bring the character of Laurie Strode back, I want them to like shake up the whole thing and like let's not have it be another retelling of the Laurie Strode we already know. Like, let's
Yeah,
find a different way to tell that story or put it in a different time. Like, they need to find some way to like to freshen it up because we've already seen you know, a couple reboots. I mean, technically,
yeah,
like 3 or 4, because you can say that Halloween 4 is like the first legacy sequel because it was almost 10 years. I mean, it
yeah,
takes place 10 years after the first film, but it was 7 years after, you know, the sequel. So, yeah, I mean, um, yeah, if they bring Laurie back, just do something different with it. I think there's potential in the Halloween franchise, but I don't think it's in retreading everything that's already been done.
yeah. I agree, but going back to Nightmare, because like, well, let's just talk about some of like the parts which we enjoyed, I guess, because
Yeah.
there were some parts which were unique to it. There were some parts which you could enjoy. There were other parts which you can't enjoy in the slightest, which were new additions as well. But some parts of it are good, sort of. Like the opening's cool. I kind of like how they switched up. I think his name's Jesse's death. He dies in the jail with like Freddy's claw going through him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And don't they switch up I thought there was another one that they switched up, and I'm trying to think cuz I've only seen I've seen this movie once all the way through. The very first time that I tried to watch it, I wasn't able to make it past like 15 or 20 minutes cuz I was really not having a good time.
Yeah,
But I watched it earlier, you know, in the summer this year, so I'm trying to think if there was something else that really stood out to me. I do think man, I think like one of the things it could have been a huge positive was they play around with that idea of like his innocence. Like, was he innocent? And the parents killed him
yeah,
anyways. I actually think like that would have that would have been cool. But they don't like go
yeah,
they go right back to, oh no, he really is a child killer. And then they take it even further than that to where he was
yeah,
you know, molesting them and all this sort of stuff too. So, which I think like is not really necessary. Like it's bad enough if he's killing kids. We don't really need like that extra, you know, motivation there. But I think it would have been kind of cool to say to have a fresh new Freddy that really does have a legit gripe and wants to have revenge. You know, of course, I guess in the original one, you know, this first sequel is called Freddy's
yeah,
Revenge. But I'm saying like he would have been actually innocent this time. And I think that, and then we
yeah,
find out that maybe it was one of the other parents. And that, so there was like another layer of mystery. And so there's somebody that's like dangerous in the real world that's close to them. And then there's also Freddy from the dream world that wants to get justice for what happened to him. And I think that was something that they teased for like the first third of the movie that maybe, and I think they should have just gone with that.
yeah. I I agree because like there is literally a scene where like I can't remember if it's Chris or bloody hell what's the Nancy in this movie. Because like for the first half of the movie you kind of focused on Chris.
Hmm.
But like and then um like she I can't remember if it's Chris or Nancy now, but like she like goes to her mum. She was like, "Well, if you killed an innocent man," and I'm just like, "Yeah." I mean, I do agree with you. That would have been cool to see, but
Yeah.
man, they just you know kind of make it a bit worse than just murdering kids.
Yeah. And I think that would have like, you know, there would have been somewhere to go. You know, I don't think the only reason why like, yeah, it was critically bashed. It probably didn't do well at the box office. Um, but if they had at least worked something into the story to make it more interesting, maybe people would have liked it more, and then you would have had somewhere to go in a sequel. Because really, the only place you can go from this film for a sequel is just to like slap something together, you know, and just like
Yeah,
hope that it works. Yeah, I'm looking at the worldwide. So the worldwide gross was 115.7 million is what it made, and it cost an estimated
yeah,
35. So let's say it cost 70 million with marketing and everything. It didn't do that well. Not horrible, but
yeah.
did not do well.
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's not received critically or like with fans of the franchise either. Pretty much no one likes this movie, um,
Yeah.
which is fair. But I've, I'm gonna bring up a point in a minute. But firstly, just gotta say, what's up, Brian? How's it going? Welcome to the stream.
What's happening, Byron?
But like, yeah, I think one of the aspects of this movie which could have gone well if they had a better script,
Hmm.
and maybe an entirely different story rather than just trying to retread the OG but failing at it as well, would
Hmm.
be Jackie Earl Haley's Freddy Krueger, because he's a cool Freddy, but the design and everything that they did with him kind of ruined it for me.
Yeah, so you don't like the realistic look is not you're not a fan of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessary. I thought it was like I mean that's one way you can go, but I also think that they could have just done like I think the reason why we love the Freddy look from the original is or at least that original run of films, we don't like it because it looks realistic. We like it because it looks scary and cool and it looks like something
yeah,
that Clive Barker would like dream up and draw. You know what I mean? So it's got this like body horror
yeah,
element thing to it. So I think that like if anyone ever, I don't know, maybe there are people that are like, oh, it looks so fake. And it's like, well, it's not necessarily supposed to look like actually real. It's a fantasy movie. So yeah, I think that they could
yeah,
have, they definitely could have gone that route and, used a little bit of practical makeup. Of course, you can always enhance that with CG as well. And I
yeah,
think that there's something about this version of Freddy though, that he's just like, totally not scary to me. And maybe it's because I watched
yeah,
this movie as a grown man, but I think like a lot of I actually think the writing is like it's okay. But his performance is just a little too like one note, you know? Like he's sort
yeah,
of there's not really any inflection. When he has his one-liners, he's like but I haven't even started hurting you yet. And it's like, it's a
yeah,
very like there's not much personality. And I think that's like one of the things like in the script, it seems like yeah, there's some personality there when you think about the lines, but the way I'm sort of like where was the director to sort of like push the performance in a better direction. Because yeah, I think that was one of the biggest things for me is I was like, man, you hire this amazing actor. Like Jackie Earl Haley not only is a great actor, but he also has a really good look to play Freddy. And then they cover him with
yeah.
CG and don't really help him with like the voice modulation sort of thing or whatever. Yeah, I something about Freddy here just didn't spook me quite as much.
Yeah, I mean, I can actually agree with you because I first watched this movie when I was like 12. I don't remember being scared of it in the slightest. Like, I mean, from what I remember, this was like right after I'd watched like one of my first few horror movies, which was Hostel, and I was terrified
Mm,
of that. Then like
yeah.
I'd come home and I think it was like the next weekend I'd watched this movie with my sister, and I was like, that wasn't bad. There wasn't really anything like scary in that one. Like I agree with Jamie here. He did try his best, but
Yeah.
the script and everything just definitely just brought him down. And
Yeah.
I agree with the delivery. There's even in the original Nightmare, something that Robert Englund like brings to the character is just that bit of comedy in the like delivery. He didn't really
Yeah.
have that. It was just flat seriousness.
Yeah, there's like a dark there's like this sinister sense of humor. And you can tell that the sinister sense of humor was written into the script. It just wasn't like, you got to have the right cadence to like sort of make it work to like sell it a little bit.
Yeah,
But yeah, it really didn't seem like he had as much personality. And I don't know if that's so I'm looking at the director right now. His name is Samuel Bayer. He's pretty much
yeah,
known for doing like music videos. It looks like that's usually what he's directing. And yeah, he's not directed a full-length film. It doesn't look like and since this movie. And I think that's one of those things that's like you sort of take a lesson from there. It's like that if you had a director with a vision, then they would have been like, Jackie, I love this. I love this. Let's try it this way. You know, they would have gotten something a little bit more, not only out of him, but out of all the actors. And I think that's like, you know, when you can, these movies, some of these remakes and some of those like 2000s and early like 2010 films have that like overly slick look. And that's what you get when you bring a music video director into your A Nightmare on Elm Street film. You get something
Yeah,
that just looks so slick, but not, you know, like for horror to work, you kind of need like that grit and a little dash
yeah,
of realism. And this movie, yeah, doesn't really. The most realistic thing about this movie is the look they made for Freddy, and even that seems like an odd decision.
yeah. I mean, I agree because Freddy is supposed to be this supernatural dream demon killer. Like he's not supposed to be
Yeah,
like it's just a burn victim who is now killing people. This is like a guy in your dreams,
sure. Yeah, I
and
don't even
that's
remember. Do they even do like much like shape shifting or anything like that in the remake? I don't recall them doing much anything creative with his physical body.
no, not really. And that's the thing. Like in those OG Nightmare movies, even with like the original, they changed him up so much. With this new one,
Yeah.
it's just like okay, it's just Freddy,
Yeah.
and he's got
Yeah, you're
super speed in one of the
and
scenes where he runs up to her on the desk.
yeah, and it's tough because it's like this is already an iconic character. So even though you're calling it a remake of the original, it's not like you really have to go all the way back and explain everything. Like most people
Yeah,
going to a Freddy movie sort of like know what they're getting into. So yeah, you could have had some fun with it. Like, yeah, because especially the later sequels, it seems like he's a different creature in like every other scene. You know, he like it is
yeah,
totally and I think that makes sense, right? That a dream demon would just sort of like take the look of something that you actually fear in your nightmares. Yeah.
yeah.
Good point.
I agree. Yeah, and like sure, there was some parts where I was like, okay, that is cool. Like for example, the kill in the jail cell is different, and it actually has some dark humor, which I kind of got. Because once the
Mm,
guy gets killed in the jail cell, his cellmate's just like bashing on the door. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. That kind of
yeah.
got me. Like, yeah, I mean, get, that will probably take ages for them to even come to the door because I probably just like, okay, just the usual.
Yeah. Yeah, it is good that they I just wish that whoever was in charge with the decision making here just would have been like, go ahead and do your own thing. Like tell your like do your own interpretation of this story, tell it your own way. You know, because yeah, this movie just really does seem to go back and forth. And then even I think one of the weirdest things about it too is when they reveal like the whole molestation part of it's like we're only 15 minutes from the end of the movie. Like it's in
Yeah,
the middle of the third act. So at that point, I remember like as I'm watching it there with my, you know, sitting on the couch with my wife watching it, I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe they're giving us new information right now. Like he's already the bad guy. Like we don't need to know, we don't need to see his like cigar box or shoe box full of like gross pictures or whatever. We don't need to know that
yeah,
exists. But it is something that just sort of like, you know, kind of comes out of nowhere. But I will hand it to, you know, Kyle Gallner and Rooney Mara. They at that point of the movie, even though that stuff is like sort of confusing me, their performances I did really enjoy. So you know, I was
yeah,
at least able to take that away from it all.
yeah. And Jamie, I agree. That was such a good part of Freddy vs. Jason, just him like as the worm. The effects
Yeah,
in that movie are cheesy as well, but they aren't like
sure.
bad like this movie. They're just cheesy, which is like good. It's
It
a
was an
horror
odd
movie. You want it
time. Yeah, what was Freddy versus Jason was like 03. That was an
yeah,
odd time where like you could do those things, but movies, if it wasn't Star Wars, it might not look good. Like that was kind of like the era of
yeah,
that time. Yeah. Yeah, though I like the creatures that, you know, even in part 3, like when he's the giant like worm or giant snake. you know, and he's
Yeah,
like eating Patricia Arquette, like, you know, those sorts of like, I know that's not in the original Nightmare so much, but I guess that's why I'm saying like in this remake they should have just sort of like let them play in a bigger sandbox and not have them like literally just do a you know, so when Marcus Nispel did Friday the 13th in
yeah,
'09, you know, they sort of let them compress like elements from the first four movies were worked into that movie. And so I think that they should have taken a note from that because both of these are Platinum Dunes. Is that right?
yeah,
So yeah, they should have taken a note from that and been like, you know what? Let's do like one and two sort of as the same movie, or let's do like a mixture
yeah,
between like one and Dream Warriors. Like let's sort of get the exposition all out of the way at the beginning of the movie. With like you don't need to stretch out the story of like is Freddy a, you know, what happened with Freddy when he was on Earth. We can just sort of literally take care of that within 5 to 10 minutes. And then you can sort of have like you know, this fresher version of a remake. I don't know. I really liked the '09
yeah,
Friday the 13th remake. I would say it's the best one out of Rob Zombie's Halloween, '09 Friday, and then this film. I would say that Friday is
yeah.
easily the best one.
I
And
mean,
this movie could have used a little bit of that juice.
yeah. With me, this might be a hot take, which isn't usually my thing. I usually just have the same opinions, but that's actually my favorite Friday film. It's so good. Like
Yeah.
it was.
It's
It's such
I,
a good movie.
yeah, and I know maybe that may be, I think that is like a hot take for folks from my generation or older, but I think if you grew up watching it as a kid, like I do know, you know, some people that are, you know, younger than I am that yeah, they rank that movie, you know, top 3, or maybe they do say it's their first,
Yeah,
you know. And like for me, I think it's right near like the top 5. Actually it might be 5 or 4. Um yeah, I mean, this one, like, yeah, that one really, really does work for me. And Jamie,
yeah,
it's not just you. The Nightmare remake does feel really rushed and phoned in.
yeah. It
And
feels rushed. It feels cheap. It just feels like they had no idea what they were doing.
yeah, and it seems like maybe a director fell out, and that's why this guy that was a cinematographer and a music video director got to do it. I'm even looking at the two people that you know, the two writers, one of them hasn't worked on like anything else. But one guy has worked on some movies like he worked on Lights Out, which I think is okay if I'm thinking
Yeah,
about the right movie. I thought Lights Out was pretty good. He wrote like he did the screenplay for Bird Box, but he also wrote The Thing from 2011. So
yeah. Well, he's got some alright stuff, and he's got some bad stuff
yeah,
in there, but
yeah. It just seems like they didn't really. I'm like trying to, you know, gather something from looking at the team here. And yeah, it just doesn't look like they put together a solid team for this one, unfortunately.
yeah. I mean, another thing which I actually noticed while watching this is I don't know if this was just like they were trying to make it like a mystery, but this is literally a remake. We all know who Freddy is. They try so hard to like hone out saying Freddy's name until like the last stretch of the movie. This
Yeah.
like we know who he is. We all know who Freddy Krueger is. I'm pretty sure even if like this is your first time watching a Nightmare movie, Freddy Krueger is so ingrained in pop culture from those first few movies. You're gonna know who Freddy Krueger is.
Yeah. Yeah. And they do, whenever Nancy's mom does like the reveal, it's another moment where I'm just like, oh, like they're trying to remake this from, or, you know, reimagine this scene from the original, but it seems like it takes place, yeah, like you said, so much later on in the film. Um, yeah, the parents aren't really, I thought the parents were gonna have a bit of a bigger role here. I was kinda
Yeah,
hoping that they would. Um, but yeah, it's, you know, it is odd. It just has that whole, like, we just need to get this thing done because they just did Halloween, we just did, you know, Friday, and let's just take care
yeah,
of the last third of the big 3. It didn't really seem like there was much, like, heart or motivation behind this one, unfortunately. And I know it has its fans. You know, Brett from Good Real Hunting is a really big fan of this one. but I just don't see it. You know, I
Yeah.
tried watching it with an open mind and everything like that. I knew that it was not very well liked when I went in to watch it, but yeah, it just I don't see the point in ever watching it again, except for if I do a watch party.
Yeah. I mean, if that's probably the only other reason that I will ever rewatch this again, because like after like doing this, like I'm pretty much done with reviewing all the Nightmare movies because I'm
Yeah.
yeah, like that's pretty much gonna be it. Because sadly and thankfully they never made a sequel to this, and it's sad because we haven't had a Nightmare movie in ages. But it's also good because
Yeah.
I would want to see what they do next.
Yeah, hopefully when
Also,
they go back
welcome to
to
the stream.
Hey, what's up, Herbert? And Herbert likes this movie. So, Herbert, I'm interested in knowing, you know, what, like, where's first off, where do you rank this movie in your Nightmare ranking? And then what about it, like, really stands out to you is like, you know, a couple things that you really enjoy about the movie. I'm just
Yeah,
curious for the conversation's sake of it. And yeah, hopefully when they go back to Freddy, I hope that the next time they do it, that they pick a really good actor who no one really knows, like a relative unknown. I think that like you know Jackie Earl Haley is such a great actor, but when you know who that person is, like somebody who I can't remember if he won the Academy Award, but I know he was nominated for one. You know, not long before this. Like, I just think that that sort of breaks that suspension of disbelief. You know, when Robert took on this role back in the day, he wasn't famous at that point. Like this role made him
yeah,
famous. And I think we need to do that with the next Freddy. I think we need to find an actor that's not a Bill Skarsgård or anything like that. Like there needs to be somebody
yeah.
who can become a star because of Freddy. Because when we go and watch a Freddy movie, we need to be afraid of Freddy and not think that, oh, that's that actor that I know from this other thing.
I love your reasoning here. It was finally a horror movie again.
That's
I
true.
mean, that is a fair
That's true.
point.
That's true. Yeah, because it had been since what, part two? I think you can call the first two horror movies, you
I
know?
call the first two New Nightmare horror movies. I count the
Yeah.
sixth one, which I believe is Freddy's Dead, as a horror movie just because of how bad it is. But yeah,
It's
I
it's
also count
horrifically
Garfield
bad.
with Bill Murray. I also count Garfield with Bill Murray as a horror movie. So yes, it is that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Freddy's Dead feels like a comedy to me. Almost like a
Yeah,
cartoon, like an R-rated cartoon. But hey, that's a good reason, Herbert. Absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't technically like there's nothing about the movie. He says it was well made. I don't think it yeah, there's nothing like technically about it that looks um yeah, it's not like lit poorly or the shot composition isn't, you know, uninspired. But yeah, I do think that design on Freddy is kind of iffy, and yeah, I think the story is the worst part here. And unfortunately for me as an audience member, if the story doesn't work, you know, like it's just not really going to resonate with me.
yeah, I agree, and I mean I agree right here. The CGI in this movie is a whole other thing, right? Because in the original, it
Yeah.
was practical effects, really, really well done practical effects.
Hmm.
With this movie, it's just
Yeah,
cheaply
even
done CGI.
even the stuff that like, you know, the him you know,
Going
coming
through
through
the
the
wall.
wall. Like
Yeah.
that's just a really simple effect that they did on set. Like you can recreate that in 2010. It's not that expensive.
Like,
Like, you know, it's
cut a
not like
little bit
doing gore
out the
effects
wall.
practically. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, wasn't
I
it
mean,
they just
cut a
didn't they
bit
just
out the
cut a
wall,
hole?
add some latex.
Yeah. There you go. Done. Yeah, it's not like a bunch of blood and guts or anything like that. It seems like those are the things that like you should absolutely, you know, fans would love to see that in a movie. They'd love to see practical effects in a modern horror movie
Yeah.
for sure.
I mean, we've seen that with like the Substance recently, which was amazing,
Oh
and
shit, I
that's
haven't seen that yet. I haven't
I won't
it
spoil
looks
anything.
so good, but I haven't seen it.
It's so good. Like
Okay.
I watched it and I was like, "What the hell is going on?" I had to watch it twice because the first
Yeah.
time I was just like, "What the hell is happening?"
Yeah. I mean, even like
Um,
I watched Thanksgiving today. Like I love that movie and it has
oh
some
yeah,
CG effects, but they have a hell of a lot of practical effects in that movie and they look
yeah.
incredible.
I mean, if you, this is a joke. This isn't like actually true. Like, if you're looking for a Thanksgiving horror movie, which is entirely practical effects because they probably couldn't afford it because they spent all their money on making that little intro thing to the movie. Thanksgiving is right there. It is
Yeah.
right there. Good old
Nice
turkey
tits,
to
bitch.
turkey. That
Yeah,
line
and
is forever engraved in my memory. Like, how can you, it's obviously a
oh
college
my
film. How can you? I mean, I know how they were able to do it because like I'm in college right now. I'm doing filmmaking and stuff. One thing we were
mhm.
told: you can't have any drugs. You can do anything else. So I know how they're allowed to have like just tits in the opening. But at the same time, like, how the hell were you allowed to do that?
Yeah, they were making a low budget horror movie, and sometimes the best way to sell that kind of thing is to have some good old fashioned nudity, you know? Why not?
Yeah. But it's still wild. um.
I I've only seen like the first 15 minutes. Well, I don't know. Maybe I have seen all of Thanksgiving and I just memory wiped it because I remember, yeah, like the first maybe 20 minutes or so. I just don't remember anything after that. But they have like multiple sequels of that for some reason. Gosh, I don't know.
They
Maybe I should
made
cover that
one
on the channel sometime.
sequel. They made one sequel. They actually called the one sequel to Thanksgiving 3 as the whole joke
Okay.
in the movie. That it's
That's
the second
great.
one, but it's also the third one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I dig that. That's kind of like the Naked Gun. With it out that we had the Naked Gun 2.5, and then the Naked Gun 33 and a third, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. People ask why was
Yeah.
Nancy Thompson a waitress? Alice from Nightmare 4 was a waitress. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
And why isn't
Um,
she named Nancy Thompson in this movie? Why did they name her Nancy and then call her she's Nancy Holbrook? Another perfect
yeah.
example of like we want to remake it, but we want it to be our own thing. And it's like, which is it? Like, what's going on with Nancy Holbrook? Who is that?
Yeah. I mean, I agree because as we were saying, like, there's so many parts where they want to do their own thing. The intro, kind of
Mm,
cool. Other parts, really cool. But then, like, it's just bits in this movie where they tried doing their own thing and they fell. If you want Nightmare on Elm Street, that's good. Watch the original.
yeah.
But
Yeah, they
I
even do like
understand.
the tub thing here as well. It's just sort of
Yeah,
like, oh
tub
geez, here
thing.
we go.
But like, he doesn't even really do anything. You just see him stick his little hand out, doing what Freddy loves to do in this movie, probably go near underage girls. And instead, like, he just bloody what it just cuts to like her walking into a room and there's what was it, snow or like pillow filling, like
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, yeah, like duck down, like floating or something like that. Yeah.
yeah.
I
That's the
love.
thing. Why the dog? Why the dog?
Yeah. I
I
was just
can't do it. Two
petting
things I can't.
him.
They do two things I dislike in horror movies in this movie. One, things with kids. Two, things with dogs.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah,
Like,
it's yeah, it's too bad, and it's also like yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things like I get it with like Michael because Michael,
yeah,
there's something about Michael that's not human. They don't really like I don't know. They don't make that big of a thing of it, but here, yeah, he's got like his little jokey line about it. Um yeah, very very odd. And you know what? The older I get, Shay, the more that stuff affects me. Like when I was younger and that stuff happened to animals in movies, like I just didn't really care. I mean, I know it's fake and all that stuff, but
yeah,
now as like a cat dad, I'm like, oh my gosh, the animals. Like
yeah.
in
I mean, like,
just saw
I
Hush,
have
like
like a
go ahead.
no, no. Just finish what you were saying because Hush is a great movie. I want to hear about this.
Oh, I was like, I just watched Hush for like the first time a month ago, and when he grabs that cat, I was like, don't you fucking kill that cat. And luckily it didn't happen. Luckily it didn't
Yeah,
happen, but man, I was really worried.
but no, that movie is so good, and yeah, I agree. I was like, wait, don't kill the cat. The cat has literally an amazing name. Don't kill
Yeah,
the cat that's named Mitch, please.
exactly.
But no,
Can't do it.
it's just too good. When I have like a dog, and because she's like just bolt out the door when like she was like a puppy. Like
Yeah.
that stuff terrifies me. If I hear her barking and the doors just open, I'm like, okay, yep, I'm going straight downstairs right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want I
It's
live out in
like
the
just
desert. People let their cats go out there. I would not, there's all sorts of animals out there that'll, and
yeah,
cars. No way. No way.
here it's just like right outside my house. There's just a road, and I'm just like, that's not
Yeah.
happening.
Not safe.
No
Not
thanks.
safe at all. Holy
Cheers
cow,
from
we've got
Germany. Welcome.
Parzival. Welcome to the chat. Hell yeah. Drinking a beer and
Welcome to
smoking a
the stream.
cigarette. All right. Cheers. Um,
Double whammy right there.
yeah. And yeah, Jamie said up there, she said she wished they'd stop using CGI so much. Practical effects have a quality that CGI can't recreate. And that's
Yeah,
true, Jamie. However, the reason why they use CGI so much is because it's way cheaper than practical effects.
yeah,
So it's one of those like cost cutting things. I'm not going to pretend that I know what each thing costs, like the true difference. But to me, I think like it's totally worth it. If I were making a movie, I'd be like, everything we can do practically, we have to do practically. And then afterwards, we can go and we can touch things up with CG if we need to like change the color on the blood or if we want to add more blood. Like I think that's totally cool. I think the two things should like, work together. But you should lean on the practical effects for sure. And yes, it's
yeah,
true, Jamie. In the 80s, every movie had to have a love scene. You had to have, if you were doing a slasher and it didn't have boobs, then it was Halloween after the first one.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, after the
I
second
mean,
one.
like it's like 80s horror and 2000s horror is like too much for me. Like when it comes to like
Mm,
nudity and stuff like that, because it goes a bit too far for my liking. But like
yeah, it's
80s
totally
horror to
unnecessary.
flash like a pair of boobs is not gonna like affect you that much. But like
Yeah.
2000s horror with like how they were trying to just up and up the brutality and just the disgustingness in every movie. They go
Yeah.
places I don't want to watch in a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't get much enjoyment out of watching, Rob Zombie's Halloween remake because I just think it's so like grim in this way that I don't like. That's
Yeah,
not what I'm going to Halloween for. Of course, the grim dialogue, but then I think is it Linda's death where she's like completely nude the entire time she's getting killed, and it's just like
yeah,
a little too like I don't need those things to like get that close, like the sex and violence kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah, I think they mix that a little bit too much in this era. Not so much in this film, but some of those other films like right around the time for sure. Yeah, and the thing is too, all those 80s movies have all of that, and all of those 80s movies still exist. So if that's what you want to see in your horror, you can go back and get it. It's definitely not
yeah.
necessary like to tell a good story or to tell a good horror story.
I mean, if you're one of those people who wants to watch a horror movie with nudity, this is really just me wanting more people to go watch this movie. Go watch The Substance, guys. It was really good.
All right,
Um,
it was really good. Tons of nudity. Perfect.
yeah, perfect movie right there. And Jamie, I agree. My dog is the biggest wimp in the world. Like, but she thinks she's a guard dog. Someone
Mm.
like rings the doorbell. She is like barking her head off,
Oh
like
yeah.
crazy madman. But then like the moment that like she thinks it's all good, she'll just come walking over, wagging her tail. And if
Yeah.
even the thing is, if there was like a home invader, I'd be screwed because the moment that like she walks up to them, she'll just roll over onto her belly, waiting for a scratch.
Yeah.
I'm dead.
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah.
screwed.
And as far as she's concerned, she's like, I barked. I let you know someone was here. Now I need to get a
Yeah,
pet. So
yeah. Like she did her end of the bargain. Now it's time for her payment right here.
yeah.
I'm scared
Yeah,
to watch
dogs
The
are fun.
Substance. I think it's gonna mess with my head. Yeah, I mean
Mm.
it's definitely like one of those. Well, it's the Coralie Flagette movie. If you've seen like Revenge, it's similar to that, but not as like intense. Well, not it's
Gotcha.
intense, but not in the same way as Revenge was intense. Like,
And it's I mean, it's a true like body horror. So yeah, I
yeah,
think yeah, I don't know. I mean, I want to watch it because it seems like it has like a dark humor element to it as well. At least
yeah,
Dennis Quaid's character from the trailer seems like he's got that kind of vibe going. So, you know, like dark humor slash horror is something that intrigues me. You know, especially with Demi Moore stepping into it. I think it's always interesting to see like actors as they age, like, you know, take on some different kind
yeah.
of roles. So yeah, I definitely have to check it out.
Yeah, I mean, she was
So
phenomenal in the movie.
do you have oh, Herbert's asking, what do you guys think of Freddy looking like an actual burn victim? Yeah, Herbert, we talked about that a little bit at the beginning, but I think that it would have been interesting to see. I don't know if they've done concept art or if they tried to do practical. I actually I like the way Freddy looks like when it's more stylized and like
Yeah,
it uses more imagination and doesn't try to look realistic. But I don't know.
yeah. I mean, like, it's it's something that like I can I can see people enjoying because it looks more realistic, and that's like the whole thing with like some horror movie. They try to make it
Yeah,
ultra realistic. It's a movie. I don't want to go into a movie looking for. If I mean, sometimes you do. You want to go into a movie looking for like, I loved
yeah.
Oppenheimer, but like then some things you just want to watch some dumb movie or like just some guy going around murdering people. That's just the way it is.
Yeah,
Um,
I can't
and
blame them for
kind of
trying. Yeah, I can't blame them for trying, but I think like they could have. I don't know. I think if you mixed practical with CG, I think it
yeah,
would have looked a little bit better. I don't. Maybe they did, but to me, it looks like it's just all CG, like the way they did his face and everything.
yeah.
But yeah, it's you know, so if a Nightmare on Elm Street came back, Shay, is there anyone that you would want to see take on the role of Freddy?
I actually don't know. I see a lot of people saying Kevin Bacon, but I don't know. I've not really seen him in any movies in ages. As a UK resident though, the only thing I see him in is the EE ads on the TV when he's promoting like broadband or something. That's what he
Oh,
is in
really?
the UK. He's just
Wow,
the broadband guy.
interesting.
Um, yeah, but I don't know. I mean,
He's
I
too old.
yeah.
Like, I think he's only 10 years
Sadly, him
younger
and
than Robert
Danielle
Englund.
Haley. Yeah, but
Yeah, I mean,
what about you? What do you want to see?
they gotta go young. Like, you've got to go with somebody that's like close to 35. You don't want to go for
Yeah,
somebody that's over 40 because you want to be able to do like 10 years worth of these movies if you can. You know,
yeah,
you at least want to be like, well, can we get like 4 or 5 out of this run if we really want to like kick something off? So I did a video about a guy named Jared Bankins who was on the Twisted Metal TV show. And
yeah,
he's just got this look and he's right around the perfect age, like 37 years old. He plays a character that like takes joy in, you know, punishing his victims and stuff like that. So he just sort of gave off that vibe to me. And he's relatively
yeah,
unknown. So I was like, Jared Bankins, that's the guy. You know, I think it should be somebody that's not very famous. I know you know, of course, I had mentioned Bill Skarsgård earlier. Who's the other one? That guy that was in the guy that played Dahmer that was in American Horror Story, Evan Peters. He played
oh yeah,
Quicksilver yeah. So people talk about him like he might work, but I think like sometimes it's like we just know these actors too much. Like I want
yeah.
some up and comer for sure.
I I agree. I'd want someone mainly unknown just so that like if they get to show off what they can do with Freddy and they get more roles, good for them. At the
Yeah.
same time, they'll know where they stand with movies and they'll hopefully keep coming back to play him again and again.
Yeah, you would imagine you want to have somebody that you can sign on for at least 3. Like you know, you're going to do the one with an option for 2 more, and then you figure that'll take like 6 years or so. So you want to pick somebody that's not like in their 60s. Jamie, I love
Yeah,
Walton Goggins. he might be too old, but I love Walton Goggins so damn much.
Yeah,
He's so good.
I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, I definitely want to see someone younger, but I currently can't think of anyone. I did just think, what if they just get Carl Gallner to play him now? Because he's a
Yeah.
well-established actor, sort of. Still not the biggest, but like he's been in
He's
some other horror
great.
franchises.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's awesome, man. I think one of the worst decisions they ever made in that Scream 5 movie was killing Kyle Gallner's character. At least,
Oh yeah.
like, it was a really weak kill. Talk about bad CG. It looks like there's no like if a knife went into a neck and then got pulled out, just like any other thing that you put a knife into, there's like resistance and friction. When Ghostface
Yeah.
kills Kyle Gallner's character, it's like you can tell there's no blade. It's just like a CGI blade. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, that character was such a great red herring anyway. So even if you want to have him taken care of later on in the story, at least let us like sit with the like, is it him kind of feeling. But yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
like you could bring him into it. Jamie says DJ Qualls, which is hilarious and could work. That's great. I don't know what his acting chops are like right now, Jamie, but I think he's got the look. Do you know who DJ Qualls is, Shay?
No, I did not know who it is.
He was only in like a couple movies. He was in a movie called Road Trip back in the early 2000s, and
Yeah.
then a movie called The New Guy, I think is what it was called. He's very, very slender, like very scrawny and bony and tall. So he definitely has like, I
Yeah.
do think that there's something like Freddy should have sort of like a unique look to him.
Yeah.
Which even though Robert wasn't like the gangliest guy, he like played it like a dancer, he had like this really interesting choreography, ways that he stood, it seems like every silhouette of Robert as Freddy is like the most iconic thing you've ever seen. And
Yeah.
like a lot of that is Robert like bringing that to the table, which is one of the reasons why he's so difficult to replace. So I think you have to find somebody that like understands that and like can bring that to the table and bring their own unique spin on it, but at least like be thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean, from what I've seen, it seems like Robert Englund, Bruce Campbell, people who are now older but have played horror icons before, now want to return like animated shows. I don't
Yeah.
know how I feel about that, but like, if that's where we're gonna go with horror, where we go from R-rated horror movies with blood and guts and everything to now R-rated cartoons,
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel about that because I don't really watch cartoons anymore unless it's maybe something like South Park or something dumb.
Yeah.
Like I'll occasionally watch an old episode of Scooby Doo if I'm feeling like I want to watch something from when I was younger. But like,
Yeah.
besides from that, I don't really watch that anymore.
I would watch. I could see myself. I'm just such an Evil Dead fan that I could see
Yeah,
myself like giving that a shot.
yeah,
Because I think it could be really inventive. Like I really like that Castlevania show on Netflix. But I would say this: in A Nightmare on Elm Street, you can find a way to make it organic, right? Like you would mention the Take on Me, like black and white, like the whole like comic book kill. I think is that from part 5,
yeah,
the comic book one.
yeah,
So you could what if you did a show where like the beginning of the movie or the beginning of the show or whatever, it is live action and then they literally do get sucked into a comic book in the dream world and that's why the show is like a
yeah.
cartoon, right? Something like that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I'd be good with that. That would be cool. Because another issue with that I have with like them being like animated and stuff. Most people still, I know not everyone now, but most people still think cartoons are just for kids, even if it's that
Sure.
certain thing.
Yeah.
Especially since these are like horror movies. Even back then, they'd make horror movie cartoons and make them PG. Like I'm pretty sure there was like a RoboCop one, wasn't there?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
Yep.
yeah, so like I don't know how I'd feel about it because they probably would think it was like just a kids like show.
Yeah, they did all that sort of weird stuff. I mean, they even in the 80s they marketed a whole bunch of like Freddy toys for kids. Like he
Yeah,
was by the time like the fourth or fifth movie came around, he was being marketed to children pretty much, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and Herbert says you guys remember the Billy Bob Thornton rumor about him being Freddy. I never heard that.
No.
What about David Howard Thornton playing Freddy? What about him moving from Art the Clown to Freddy Krueger? Could he do that?
I mean, I'd have to see a voice, but I've seen him doing like Joker impressions. I'd be good with him as
Yeah.
DCU Joker. But, like, I don't know if he has like the build for DCU Joker. He definitely can do the voice. He can do like the movements and everything, but I don't know if he has like the correct like physique and everything for Joker. But I'd definitely be interested in seeing him maybe play Freddy because he has that like sadistic glee that Freddy has
Yes.
already.
Yeah, and I think that he's got the body acting, but then for him to be able, because I've seen a video of him on YouTube that I think he posted it like 15 years ago, so before he was even famous, where he does like 60 impressions in like a minute or whatever the hell it is. It's something crazy like that. Or it's 100 impressions in 10 minutes or whatever the hell it is. But he does good voices. So I'm like, it would be interesting to see him, you know, jump from a silent killer like Art the Clown to a very expressive killer with a bunch of personality like Freddy. Not to say that Art doesn't have personality. He has plenty of personality, but it would be cool to see him move to something where he could talk, you know. I think that would be interesting. And it would give him an opportunity to say like, "Hey, I can play Freddy and I can have you won't even be thinking about Art the Clown." You know, it would be like a challenge. I don't know.
I mean,
Could be cool.
The other thing which I enjoy about that is that, like, you know, him and Damien Leone, they're only gonna do what, like, one, maybe two more Terrifier movies, pretty much,
Yeah.
from what I've heard. So after that, you know, they're pretty much clean slate right there. So maybe they can just jump over to Nightmare. I'd like to see it as long as it isn't too gory, because, like, you know, some of them are gory, but I don't want it like terrify levels of gore.
Sure. Yeah. I think that'll be the interesting thing for
What's
Damien
that?
Leone moving from Terrifiers. Can you pull it back? You know, can you not show have you seen Terrifier 3 yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff they show in there, I'm just like, okay. Did I need to see that?
Yeah,
Come on now.
it gets a bit much.
Yeah, and maybe even a bit more comedic.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Jake Gyllenhaal's Freddy.
That's good. I think that's a good one. And I think he's
he's
right there where he's what, probably getting close to 50 now. He's probably in his mid 40s, so he's probably not too old if you're only looking at do 3 or 4 movies with him. Yeah. I think he could work. I think he's a really good actor. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know this wasn't exactly a popular movie or a popular remake, but I saw him in a remake of a movie at the beginning of this year with the new Roadhouse movie that he did. That deserved to be in cinemas, not just shoved on Prime. That was so good. Like, sure, Conor McGregor trying to act, and everything else was really good.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll have to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
but
I think that would be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what would you rate A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've seen some pretty bad movies. So judging against like the absolute worst movies I've seen, I would probably say this is like a 3 or 4 out of 10 for me. You know, pretty bad.
Yeah.
I would get a kick
I
out of
agree.
watching it.
I'd probably give it like 4.5.
Yeah, I like on watching it on my channel, like making fun of it and stuff. Like I could have a fun time doing that. I think that would be really cool. But I don't ever see myself being like, you know what movie I'm in the mood for, and then A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010. Like probably never gonna say that in my life. So yeah, I would say 3, 4 at best, compared to the worst movies ever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't say it's the worst worst horror movie I've seen. I've seen way worse than this. Like way way worse than this. But it's still definitely not good, and it's not the best out there. But I mean, everyone in the chat, what would you guys rate this movie out of 10? You know, do you think it's bad? Do you think it's all right? Do you think it's good? Like Herbert over here, do you think it's actually a pretty good movie? What do you guys think about it? But let's see here. Which Freddy would you rather fight? Robert England Freddy or remake Freddy?
Oh man, they're both gonna kill us,
That's a tough
right? I mean,
question.
you're not gonna get
They
away
both
from
kill
Freddy.
us. The thing is, I'd be in more danger with remake Freddy because I'm still under the age of 18. So I'd probably go with Robert England Freddy.
Yeah, I would rather fight Robert England Freddy just so when I'm hanging out in the afterlife, I could be like, hey, at least it wasn't the one from the remake. You know?
Yeah. When you're just like a dream of someone else trying to warn them or something, hey, I was killed by Freddy. Don't worry, it wasn't the remake version though, it was the good Freddy.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
this movie is, and all the folks watching after the fact too, like, let us know in the comments what you think of the film. Like, are we way
Yeah.
off? Like, of course, what if you enjoy the movie? Like, what I'm really fascinated to know is just, what parts about the movie work for you, which elements, really drive it home as one of your favorites. Shay, if you had to rank the big three remakes, like Rob Zombie's Halloween, '09 Friday the 13th, and this one, how would you rank those?
Well, for me, I'd probably put Friday number 1, and
Mm-hmm.
then number 2, I'd put Halloween just because it's got some alright elements. It's definitely not my favorite. And then bottom, I put this movie.
I do the same thing, and it's probably because I think the Rob Zombie's Halloween is much better made. Like he does have an eye for like where to put the camera and all that. Like he knows his movies feel pretty real, and I think that's something to take for sure. I
Yeah,
like Scream, and Ice Cream says,
I
"What
agree.
about Tex?
But
What?
what do we think about the TCM remake?
So good.
It's pretty good for what. Like I don't like all remakes, but that's a really good remake.
I think that's one of the better ones for sure. I think it's one of the better
Yeah,
movies in the franchise. It might be my second favorite to the
yeah,
original.
that's the sad thing about a franchise when one
Yeah.
of the best movies in the franchise is a remake.
But it is, and it's funny. It's a interesting thing to think about. So that's another Marcus Nispel movie. So he did the '03 TCM remake, and then does the '09 Friday the 13th. They both are like such visceral feeling films. Like they're just something about the way
Yeah,
he shot those. Like they really feel they've got tons of grit to them, and they totally go against the slickness that you see in this Nightmare movie from 2010.
yeah,
Yeah. And another thing people forget about the remake is he had the same cinematographer from the original film, which is
yeah,
that's got to be like oh my god, like imagine if Dean Cundy had shot Rob Zombie's Halloween. I mean, it already looks good. It's almost like cheating.
yeah, definitely. American Psycho remake will suck. Yeah, I saw that they were there was like a remake with Luca Guadagnino. I'm gonna give it a shot because I love some of his movies. I love a good bit of body horror. But I'm still unsure about it. It can't be worse than American Psycho 2, though.
Probably not. Yeah. Yeah, I'm interested. Is it a film, or are they doing a TV show?
It's gonna be like a movie.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested to see just how it's different than the other, the original that came out. That was a movie that I saw. I was like a sophomore in high school or something, and
Yeah,
saw that one in the theater. So I was like 15 or 16. Man, it cracked me up.
yeah,
I like it's so disturbing, but there's something so funny about American Psycho. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah. Well, thank you for coming on and talking about this movie. It is
Absolutely.
definitely bad, but it's at least good talking about it with someone just
Yeah.
completely like ripping the movie.
Yeah, I think the great thing about bad movies is it can be just as fun to talk about them and just have a laugh
Yeah,
as it is to talk about a movie that you really love in a serious way. So, yeah, I mean, I think that this movie is one of those that it's fascinating. Every now and then there are people that come along and they're like, this is one of my favorites in the franchise. And it's
yeah,
something that like I don't really, I don't really get, but at the same time, yeah, like you said, it is fun to have a laugh here.
yeah, definitely. Thank you all for coming out and just chatting about this movie with us.
Hell yeah.
What's up, Ryan? How's it going? Thank you for coming on. As I did say, everyone go check out Davey Deathler if you haven't already. He's got some great stuff over on his channel. And until next time, thanks for watching the stream. This movie is not very good, and we will see you next time.
Take care.